Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and China is trying to end America's PetroDollar monopoly. Folks, I've been telling you about this for years now. Look at this line right here. Beijing and Moscow this year agreed to settle their energy deals in yuan and the Russian ruble rather than the dollar. A move by Riyadh to do the same would cause considerable disquiet in Washington. Now remember, when Kissinger met on behalf of the Nixon administration with Saudi Arabia, he negotiated that all oil would be purchased in U.S. dollars, and that is what has driven. If you're an American, that is what has driven your standard of living from the time I was a child until now. And if that's gone, the standard of living is gone, and that's the fact, Jack. And guess what? Why wouldn't you try to end the petrodollar if you're Putin or this Z or whatever, however you say his name? Because here, literally, the person that's running the U.S. House Committee on Financial Services was blowing kisses to Sam Bankman-Fried and is trying to get to the bottom of Bitcoin and seems more interested. There's a clip I'll show you later. More interested in her ego and shutting down people in her, controlling people in the Financial Services Committee. This woman couldn't even balance my checkbook, folks. We're not talking about a brain trust up there. It's embarrassing if it wasn't so scary. And this is what we're dealing with now in this country. But you know what's worse is that there's incompetence there. Don't get me wrong, but it's worse than that. It's corruption. That's what makes it so scary. I believe, I've said it before, I believe as much as 3/4, maybe even more, of our people in Congress and spread throughout our government are compromised by countries like China. And I believe that it was a 30 to 50 year plan to do that. And I think that's what we're dealing with. But, folks, there's only one way. Well, there's a couple of ways, but one of the ways that you can protect yourself, that I am anyway, is by buying physical gold and gold in my Glen account. Glen's one of my sponsors. Links in the top of the description. You can buy gold in a Glen account. You can have a MasterCard debit card. It's the first time in my life I've ever seen a way to have spendable gold. I've bought margaritas with my Glen card. So the link to that is in the top of the description. These people have destroyed the value of our money. We're rolling into a new system. My greatest hope is that a lot of what we're watching is some kind of a psyop, because if it's not, this country is doomed. Eleanor Terrett breaking. Sam Bankman-Fried request for bail has been denied as the judge believes him to be a flight risk. And then here's the arrest. That picture right there, I believe, will go down in history. An iconic photograph. And then here's some video. This is him right here, right over here. There he is.
Anything you'd like to say?
Really bizarre to watch. And here's from the top. If I can get it. Yeah, there they come.
We're seeing some activity.
That's them right
Police
there.
officers. We can see
first time I've
Sam
seen him dressed up.
Bankman-Fried in a blue suit and a white shirt being walked to the vehicle. He is in handcuffs. He's been placed into the back seat of this blue Ford vehicle. He was...
All right, so there's that. Now, this is bizarre. Bankman-Fried's mother audibly laughed several times when her son was referred to as a fugitive, and his father occasionally put his finger in his ears as if to drown out the sound of the proceedings. Folks, this whole family seems to be delusional to me. Or maybe the better word is arrogant. Maybe these people... I know a guy that owned an island that was very arrogant too. And that's the problem here. That's the scary part here. Okay? And that's as much as we'll say there. Now, Stuart Alderati weighed in. To be clear, the SEC's tag-along complaint against SBF seeks to recover funds for FTX's sophisticated equity investors, not the consumers who have been left holding the bag in bankruptcy court. Well, isn't that what Gary Gensler's all about? Gary Gensler's not about protecting investors. He is about protecting Wall Street, helping to manipulate the markets so that he, as a regulator, can come in and control things for Wall Street. That is the name of the game here, if you haven't picked up the pattern. But I think it's important to remind you all of something. Remember, this all started because CZ Binance caught wind. CEO of Binance caught wind that Sam Bankman-Fried was up to shady stuff. So he went out, CZ Binance went out and announced that he was going to sell their FTT tokens, okay? When he did that, that is when this house of cards started crumbling. So let's not forget, if he had not announced that, Gary Gensler would still be working hand in hand with Sam Bankman-Fried and his fraud machine to craft crypto legislations in the USA. Let that sink in, folks. And everywhere you look, everywhere there's scams and fraud, the SEC is doing one of two things. Either looking the other way, okay, that's the pattern. Here's the pattern. Everywhere you look where there is scams, fraud, and all kinds of shady, corrupt behavior going on, the SEC is in one of two positions. They're either looking the other way or they're meeting with the fraudsters. Okay? Went for ETHgate. Remember, ETHgate, they were meeting with them. Joseph Lubin, Andrew Keys, they were meeting with them. Now, FTX, same thing. And it's not just the SEC, it's the CFTC too. So they're either looking the other way, and then what are they doing? They're going after the people like Ripple where there's no fraud accusations. That's your SEC, folks. Now, speaking of SEC, now I want to make sure I reiterate, this Sunshine Act notice, this is not some notice that just came up and this is groundbreaking news. They do these every, I don't know how often they do it, like every quarter or every so often they do these. But my understanding, don't quote me, but my understanding is that it says here, the subject matter of the closed meetings is the following topics. My understanding, if I'm recalling correctly, is that in this meeting is where I think they do a vote of the commissioners, and they have to vote on, like, for instance, if they're going to settle a claim or whatever. Okay, I think so. But that is by coincidence. This is the reason I wanted to show it to you. What did we hear from Charles Hoskinson is December 15th. Now, even if they all did go in there and vote to settle the Ripple case, we probably wouldn't even hear about it on the 15th. But it's interesting anyway. Okay, moving along. This is from the hearings yesterday, Sam Bankman-Fried. Now, folks, I'm telling you, I'll tell you right now, I've told you before. Not only was the government somehow behind this, in my opinion, they were behind Bitcoin, in my opinion, probably Ethereum too. I believe almost the entire crypto space is one giant psyop of some sort. I really do, because these things, they all keep pointing back to the government. Listen to this, just listen to it.
Let me dive in. A day after FTX filed for bankruptcy, multiple outlets reported that there was a hack or potential theft. You have stated unauthorized access to certain assets occurred and that the company was in touch with law enforcement officials and regulators. Have you determined whether, in fact, assets were moved out after the bankruptcy?
Yes, clearly there was assets moved out after the bankruptcy.
And do you know whether or not that was an actual hack, or was this done, as has been reported, at the direction of the Bahamian authorities?
It was both.
It was both. And so some was done. Some was done as a result of a hack. Some was done as a result of the request of the Bahamian authorities.
Yes, that's right.
And do you have indication as to why the Bahamian authorities made that request?
Well, it wasn't a request. They just took it.
The Bahamian authorities took the funds that were at FTX
Yes.
through their own action. Was no action required by FTX employees? Maybe you could provide just a little color.
They were aided by the ex-employees, yes.
They were aided by former employees
Yes,
of FTX.
Yes, Mr. Wang and Mr. Freed.
Yeah, where's Gary Wang?
Is it in the eyes of the Bahamian authorities did this to protect clients and creditors? What was the do you have insight into the motivation behind this action?
Unlike the Chapter 11 process, there's no transparency in the process in the Bahamians, and we've repeatedly asked them for clarity about what they've been doing, and we've been shown.
Who else have we been asking for clarity? Look at this line right here. I won't read that. I'm just going to let you look at it. Folks, many roads lead to right there. But you know how it is on this channel. We don't talk about things like that. Okay, new U.S. Attorney SDNY Damian Williams requests any person, entity, or political campaign that has received stolen FTX customer funds to work with the SDNY to return it. He also thinks anyone involved in FTX Alameda wrongdoing to come see us before we come see you. And then you had this from Library. Now that FTX is arrested, it's time for the next step. So think about this, folks. Here you have Gary and all these government agencies, and they were involved with these people. They were having planning sessions with these people. And now, once it's called a fraud and exposed, now they're never going to let a good crisis go to waste. And they're going to say, hey, this is why we need to have stricter regulations. It's sick, folks. I mean, in my world, we call these people liars, okay? That's what they're called. But of course, in Gary's world, this is just what you do. Speaking of what you do, folks, massive fire breaks out at NYPD evidence control and impound warehouse. Now, I think I'm going to end here, and I'm going to tell you that if you are in that population of people on this planet who believe that is just some accident against the backdrop of everything that's going on in this country and around the world right now, if you believe that that's an accident, I'm going to create a Christmas special igloo in South Georgia. It will melt in probably less than 24 hours. It gets into the 70s sometimes in the wintertime here. But it is the finest igloo. It's a luxury igloo. So if you believe that is just an accident, then you need to buy my igloo. And Gary Gensler would probably call my igloo a security, but we'll deal with that later. But you are the perfect buyer for my igloo if that, to you, looks like an accident, or you think that's an accident. I'm the digital asset investor, and you know what it reminds me of a lot? And it's almost, to me, whoever did that intentionally, whoever did that, you know what that reminds me of as I watch that smoke there in New York City? It reminds me almost identically to, you remember those two things that went down a few years back? You remember how it happened? I'm not even going to say anything else, but you know what I'm talking about. Many of you do. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe. Hit the like button and tell your friends and family that my igloo is back on the market if you are dumb enough to believe that that is an act.